Hello everybody. Today is MS292 online lecture series number 4, International Business. I think you had a very good holiday for a holiday. Okay, just we start studying now. Now, today's lecture, we have to start from the developments of world trading systems. Well, world trading systems, there are long stories. They initially in Britain about 15th century to middle of the 20th century, they had the corn loans. Okay, they charged, I think it's importing of the corn, protecting their corns and all right, and also thereafter the world experienced about Great Depression 1929, and then eventually this Great Depression economic crisis caused some World War II, and after World War II 1945 everybody thought we have to prevent this kind of troubles, and then they started to develop general agreement on tariffs and trade. It lasted 1947 to 1995, and then after Uruguay round 1995 until now, it's a World Trade Organizations. Okay. Well, just we start about how the 1929 World Depression developed. 1930, the United States enacted a Smoot-Hawley Act. Smoot-Hawley Act, I'm sorry. Well, this is a highly protective act by U.S. and caused retaliatory tariff barriers from other countries. One country raised the tariffs, and then other country also raised. Just like it's happening now, U.S. government is imposing highly tariffs. It's a retaliatory tax against China, and China also imposed American products to China also. This is almost same things is happening. It happened in 1930s, and U.S. export, because of this retaliatory actions by other countries, world trade fell further into the Great Depressions. This is called those days beggar thy neighbor, let your neighbor poor policy. Okay. Well, now how it developed. 1947 up to 1979, GATT trade liberalization and economic growth. Under U.S. leadership, the GATT was established 1947. Membership was initially 19 and grew to more than 120. Right? And GATT was superseded by the WTO in 1995. That's what happens. Well, after 1940s, lots of things happens, especially Japan recovered very quickly from the World War II, and Japan was in ruins in 1945 and 47 when GATT was created. By the early 1980s, however, well, Japan had become the world's second largest economy and its largest exporter. U.S. trade deficit peaked in 1987 at more than $170 billion. Okay, that is almost half of the Pakistan GDP. The resulting unemployment gave rise to renewed demands in the United States Congress for protectionism. because lots of American workers lost job. So many Japanese cars are exported to the United States, and then American automobile companies had to lay off their peoples, and lots of vendors, suppliers also, they laid off the peoples, and these unemployed people put the pressure on the American congressmen for protectionism. Now, other trend towards greater protectionism is something like voluntary export restrictions, which was mainly talked between US and Japan. This is the circumvention of the GATT regulations and to avoid GATT bureaucracy. GATT is a general agreement between tariff and tax. It's very bureaucratic organizations, very slow. If there are some complaint raised to the GATT, very difficult, takes long time. So therefore, something like a voluntary export restrictions. Automobiles, we are between United States and Japan. Well, almost 23% the US import between 1981 and 86 was affected by non-tariff barriers, that is primarily VAR, voluntary export restrictions, that was applied mainly for automobile and steel products. Okay, and now 1947 to 79 GATT trade liberalization and economic growth. Under US leadership, the GATT was established 1947, just I told you. Sorry about it. And then next ones. Other trends towards the protectionism. Also I told you, and then I'll repeat it again. Then 1986, the Uruguay Round and the World Trade Organizations. Well, against the rising pressure of the protectionism, rising protectionism, in 1986, GATT members embarked on the 8th round of the negotiation to reduce tariffs, the Uruguay Round, which dragged on for 7 years actually. Well, because of this Uruguay Round, average tariff rates imposed by developed nations on manufactured goods were to be reduced to less than 4% of value, the lowest in modern history. Okay. GATT rules were to be extended to cover services, for the first time services. GATT never covered services. GATT rules were to be extended to protection of patents, copyrights, and trademarks, intellectual property. The WTO was to be created to implement the GATT agreements. Okay, and eventually, until 1995, GATT rules applied only to industrial goods. In 2007, world trade in service amounted only to 3.260 billion compared to the world trade in goods of 13,570 billion. Okay, so first time after GATT was replaced by the WTO, WTO has now handling the service industries. The World Trade Organizations now, by 2011, the WTO had 153 members, including China, which joined at the end of 2001. before China was not a member. So there were lots of complaints against China because China copied lots of intellectual properties from United States and Japan. Now, at the end of the 2001, China finally joined the WTO. And between 1995 to 2010, its free trade policing and enforcement mechanisms had a positive effect. More than 400 trade disputes among member countries were brought to the WTO. Well, GATT only had handled only 196 cases, about half of the WTO handled, almost over half a century. GATT lasted until 1947 to 1995. GATT only handled 196 cases. Whilst the WTO between 1995 to 2010, about only 15 years, they handled more than 400 trade disputes. So how the WTO efficient, you can understand. More than 90 to 95% of the telecommunication and financial services also covered by WTO. WTO was also encouraged to expand its regulations governing foreign direct investment, which GATT had never done. GATT never handled for foreign direct investment. Well, later in this lecture, we will handle the foreign direct investments. Now, WTO in Seattle, that is a watershed. Probably some of you did know this Seattle troubles. The talks ended December 3rd, 1999 without any agreement being reached. Major stumbling block, frictions between US and EU over the eliminating subsidies to the agricultural exports. EU had given so much subsidies to the agricultural sector, and to compete this, US also gave a huge amount of subsidies. Well, US and EU had lots of troubles over these subsidies. The US wanted WTO to allow governments to impose tariffs on goods imported from countries of unfair labor or practices. Well, which representatives from developing nations reacted angrily. For example, children's labor. Also, some of the African countries, even Pakistanis, they are opposing. America insists don't use the children's labor. Well, developing countries need a lot of workers, and then some of the countries, they use children's labor workers. The America, our developed countries, is complains. So therefore, they should be allowed to impose punitive tariffs. Well, this is also the problems. Environmentalists also expressed concern about the impacts of free trade in agricultural products. Well, as you know, there are lots of acid rain problems, and also in the Amazon area in Brazil, more than 1/3 of the oxygen in this globe is produced in Amazon jungles. The Amazon area is increasingly developed, and then they are losing the jungles and forests, and that decreases the oxygen from the globes. So therefore, lots of troubles happen in this Seattle meetings. Now, the future of the WTO, unresolved issues, and the Doha round. Okay. four issues of the current agenda of WTO: the increase in anti-dumping policies, mainly carried out by the Americans, the high level of protectionism in agriculture. Well, EU is also highly protected, and Japan is also, we have to protect agriculture. Politicians need their voting numbers from their agriculture sector. So politicians are very much affected by the agricultural sector. Same as EU and also in Japan. The lack of strong protection for intellectual property rights. Well, this is American insisting. Also Japanese are also. Intellectual property rights. The continued high tariff rates on non-agricultural goods and services in many nations. I think you'll be surprised. Japan is one of the lowest non-agricultural goods tariffs. We'll speak on data in this course also. Okay, these are the issues, still the current agenda of the WTO. Okay, we'll talk about one more sessions of this area, and then we'll go on to foreign direct investments. Thank you.